Welcome back everybody to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's video we're going to continue our exploration of Nginx, the web server. Specifically in this video, what we're going to be talking about is a little bit of security. So one of the more common items that you'll run into as an administrator of a website is you'll need to occasionally block one or more IP addresses. Now the best way to block IP addresses across the board for all domains on a system is at the firewall layer. It's typically specialized for that. It removes the processing of that connection from your web server, and it allows you to manage the security at a layer that's removed from our web server. However, there may be situations where you need to block IP addresses at the web server layer, or you want a little bit more granular control. You don't want to block an IP address for all domains on a server, but you want to block an IP for just one particular site. So there's a facility that Nginx offers us in order to do that for blocking IPs, and it comes with a module called NGX HTTP Access Module, and it is a simple allow or deny on the IP or the subnet for accessing our system. So the first way to do it, let's take a look at our Nginx configuration overall. So we're going to go to etc nginx as always, where our configuration file is, and we're going to edit our nginx.conf file. So let's do a vi nginx.conf, and all we're going to do is we're going to include a new file that we're going to create in our root directory for our Nginx configuration. So above the, or below the includes, let's go ahead and insert an include statement. And all we're going to do, and this can be any file that you want, but we're going to call it blockips.conf. So we're going to include blockips.conf. And it has to be within the HTTP section of your nginx.conf file, or it won't include those files and work the way we expect it to. So that's all we're going to do, include blockips.conf. And then we're going to save our configuration. Now we're going to create the blockips.conf file. So let's do a vi on blockips.conf. And all we have to do here is add an allow or deny for whatever IP or subnets that we want to allow or deny access to our overall server. So because anything in this file will override anything at a domain level that we may have allowed or blocked. So in this case, we're going to do a deny, and we're going to switch over here to another window and pull up links, HTTP, and then www.whatsmyip.net. And this will tell us what our local IP address is externally. So this address, 72.129.239.247, happens to be the address that we want to block. Right now, if we open up a web browser before we've added any changes, we just want to verify that we can view the web page over that address. So we're going to go to http://164.165.133.217, and we should get the Nginx page. So this is our new config and index, and that's the default Nginx page from a previous video that we've set up. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and close our web browser. And what we want to do is we want to create an entry that denies the access to our website from 72.129.239.247. So if we save that, and you'll always want to run an nginx-t specifically because we're editing both an internal and an external configuration file. We want to make sure we haven't made any mistakes. And then we'll do a service nginx restart. Once we do that, if we open up a web browser again and we revisit that IP address, what we should get is we should get a 403 access forbidden. And that's one of the other differences from blocking an IP address at a server level versus a firewall level. Most cases, a firewall level will simply drop the request, whereas at a server level, we're still processing the request and we're going to respond to it. So we should get a 403 forbidden. Now, we'll go ahead and close this, and we will remove the IP address from here and save the file, do a service nginx restart, and then when we go back, it should bring up the web page as we expect. So 54, 165, 133, 217. It was forbidden last time. We've got our new config and index back in. So it lets us back in. So if we want to control it from a vhost perspective, then we go into our vhost file that we want to edit, and we'll do a vi on www.myexample.local.conf. And in the location directory for your root system, so in this case, our root, then we would add the allow or deny here. And the difference is this is only going to apply to this particular domain. So if I put an IP address here, it's only going to block that IP address for this vhost. And in fact, if I don't add it to my 443 server in the root, then if I go over HTTPS, it won't block that IP address. I have to add it to both the server directive and the location directive in my vhost so that I block it. And anything that is in the global configuration will override anything that's in the local configuration if it exists. So meaning that if I say block here, but I have an allow in the global configuration, it will block it only in the context of the local system and not globally. So this only applies to IPs here, whereas it will override the IP block for every other domain because it only exists inside of my server directive. So again, if I wanted to allow or deny, I would simply put the IP address here. And then once we save it, we would do an nginx-t and then a service nginx restart. And now that IP address is blocked again. So again, the advantage of doing a block here is gives you a little bit more granular control if you want to be able to serve, for example, if you wanted to be able to serve custom configuration error files. So if a quick and dirty way of doing IP gating, for example, for paid content, you deny access to a particular website for all IPs except those that you have in an exception list. And those IPs that appear in the exception list would have access to the content specifically for a particular domain based on the overall configuration or the location-based configuration. It's basically like creating an ACL or an access control list for your website that you can use for a number of things that are at a layer that still allows your Nginx web server to serve and respond to content requests from those particular IPs. Whereas if you do it at the firewall level, it removes that connection request from coming to your web server. So it really depends on what your end goal for blocking or allowing those IPs in. But for adding a little bit of security and IP control for our vhosts and our Nginx configuration, that's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.